Hello, everybody. We are really excited to be screening Bombay Rose as part of the virtual edition of the BMO IFFSA Toronto 2020 in the Love, Lament and Rebellion section, which is incredibly pertinent to this film. I'd like to introduce Gitanjali Rao, the director, writer, creator of Bombay Rose. We are going to talk to you about the project and the process. So I think we'll start with development, we'll go through production into distribution and festivals, and then we'll end with what we're planning to do next. So Gitanjali, perhaps you could talk a bit about where this idea came from and your and the history of the story.
Sure. So hi everybody at IFFSA, and it's a lament that we cannot be there, but it's great that the film is screening, and yeah, we'll share probably just some bits about how the film came to be made. For me, the process started somewhere around 2013. I had the idea of a film, a feature film, and I was looking, as all people who want to make feature films, the first thing you do is start looking for finance. And I kind of started that parallelly, looking for producers and developing the idea in my own mind. And it took a long time to actually find producers, because animation is a long process, it's an expensive process, and the kind of film that I wanted to make was a difficult one for animation. So for the first 1.5 years, instead of just waiting to make to find the right producers, what I did was I took a story from the film, and I made it into a short film, a 19-minute film called True Love Story. This was basically to show and build faith in the audience and the producer that I can make a film like this, that a film like this can work in terms of the graphic style and the story that I was trying to say. So I made the film, and luckily it was selected in Cannes in 2014. So that's where the film premiered. And that's where the journey took off for me, also to go from a short film to making a feature film, understanding the process of writing a story, which is feature length. And then I started actually writing and scripting the feature length through various script labs. And yeah, so the process, actually, the idea began in 2013. I made this film in 2014. And then a lot of things happened, but that will probably be part of your next questions. So yeah, so I was in somewhere around 2016, 2015, I did the script lab in NFDC, and that's where Sinistan noticed Bombay Rose.
Yeah, I remember reading, I remember watching your shorts, which blew me away. I mean, I just don't know how anyone couldn't love your work. And then I read the script. I was in Mumbai, and I had really severe jet lag, and I was in bed and I couldn't sleep. So I knew I had the script to read. So I read it, and I read it in one sitting. I was so emotionally attached to it. I cried, I laughed. It really represented the Bombay that I'd seen and experienced in the last few years of working there. And I hadn't seen many that really captured that romance in a very kind of non-judgmental way. It was a very warm, loving story. And so I pitched it to my colleagues, and they all also fell in love with it. In fact, it was probably the easiest commission we ever did in the company, because we were all just besotted with it. So that was, yeah, so we came on quite early. I think you had some French co-production partners already, Film DC, and you were at animatic stage, I think, or you just started your animatic.
No, I had not yet started my animatic. Oh yeah, maybe I had, but you're right. Yeah, right from 2013, I was supported by Le Film DC on another film, in fact, which was not Bombay Rose. So they had been supporting me with whichever idea I came up with as a feature. In 2013, it was Girgit, and we couldn't find co-producers for it. Then in 2014 onwards, it was what was then called True Love Story, and I was pursuing. And it was the beginning of 2016. The thing is, for almost 2 years, between 2014 and 16, while I was writing the script, and I had finished a couple of script labs and was showing it around to a lot of production houses in Bombay, there was a wait of anything between 6 months to 1 year to sometimes never hearing from them at all about having read the script. So, you know, one was doing this thing as all strugglers do. You go with your script to about 20 production houses and they say, yeah, we will read it and we will get back to you. And sometimes it even went into a 1 or 2 meetings and then we will get back to you kind of thing happened. And what was different after the co-production lab in through Film Bazaar, and when Cinestar noticed it, one of the things was, yes, I had done 3 labs and the script had evolved a lot. And then when Cinestar, I passed on the script to Nupu, I remember, and she sent it to you. I think it took exactly 5 days for Cinestar to get back to me. I sent the script on Monday, and by Friday, you people said we are interested. In the history of producing films, forget an animation film, which is as difficult as mine, I have not heard 5 women reading the script and agreeing on doing the film and being so decisive. And 2.5 years later, we made the film. You know, it was not just one of those things, yes, we'll do it, and it did work out. So that was quite a magical moment. And it happened so quickly. And something you do for 3 years, nothing works out. And then in 5 days, it gets a thumbs up. It was, I think, everything coming together, the right people, right partnership, and then I guess love at first sight from both places.
Absolutely. No, I mean, yeah, it was love at first sight. And I think you're right. I think an all-female team, I mean, so the 2 producers of the film, Anand Mahindra and Rohit, who oversee Cinestar Film Company, obviously they're men, but they'd brought in this team of women from UK, Spain, India. And yeah, I think we all really wanted to tell women's stories. We wanted to tell stories led by female filmmakers. In fact, we were tasked with working with the best voices out of India that would work for the international market, and you just fit that, but you also fit our own kind of internal plans to work with more kind of, I don't know, innovative and interesting storytellers than you might expect from sort of an industry that's very Bollywood focused and actually quite male focused in many ways. Obviously, there are a number of amazing female filmmakers in India, but working in the more indie independent space is tricky. It's tricky. And so from there we went into quite a long production period, as is the standard with animation. You have a very specific style of animation, and also I think this is quite a big change for you because you'd been working very much on your own, and this was the first time you had a team of animators. So I'd love if you could talk a bit about that process.
Yeah, so that process is something I was quite skeptical about, not being very experienced. And I think that's where the studio Paperboat, having known and worked with the people from Paperboat, I had worked with Soumitra Ranade and Shilpa Ranade, something like 15 years back on one of her films. And she also works a lot like me. And I realized that there is a studio which can do good 2D animation, excellent 2D animation, because it's a reality now that there are very few people left in the world who pursue 2D animation. It's all gone on to 3D, and it's considered a very old and traditional style. I come from that school where it's not just 2D animation, it is painted frame by frame. So to have a bunch of people who could probably follow my style was scary, and probably 15 years back, if I was doing it, it wouldn't be scary because I was surrounded by people. We were all doing 2D animation. But now to find those few people, to find somebody who can figure out a pipeline of an entire film, who has experience of doing, having done a feature film, Paperboat fit the bill completely. And having worked with them, having understood that they are also not people who work simply for money. They are artistic, and there's always this artistic endeavor parallelly happening in that studio, where all the blood and the passion goes. And then there's another part of the studio where you have to make money to pay your bills. So again, that partnership was the reason why I could feel confident with the 3 main people running the studio at Paperboat: Soumitra Ranade, Mayank Patel, and Ashish Mal, and their experience. So we set together a team. And what was new for them was I happened to be somebody who paints every frame and proceeds frame by frame, because I work as an individual animator. So I am the one who's doing everything from the first drawing to the last, and not making mistakes and not having corrections to do, because I know what needs to be done. Now this needed to be translated into a group of people. So we had to come up with very innovative techniques of, here is a signature style of somebody, and then there are going to be 40, 50, 60 people doing that same signature style. And the paperboard broke it down quite interestingly, depending on the talent that we had. We found animators who could draw in pencil, and that's how traditional 2D animation is drawn, and then it is colored. And since my animation is painted, there is no line drawing, there is no coloring, it's painted. So it was broken down into line drawing and coloring. We had a group of experts doing your line drawing, a group of experts doing the coloring, and a bunch of students helping them bring these two things together. So this again was a very unique way of solving a problem. And that's how the process, which took only 18 months, is actually not very, very long time for a painted frame by frame animated film. And with, I think we had not more than 60 people at a time working on the film. It was just training them to get to learn my style and work in coordination with each other, because no drawing was done by a single person. No frame was created by a single person. It was such a huge team making it all come together. And actually, I think it's quite amazing, because month after month after month, our producers could not see anything that we had done, because everything was like, you know, just a line drawing. And I remember sending the work every 3 months to Sinistan in UK with these really heavy folders, which nobody knew what to make of it.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I thought what I loved about your team was there were animators who sort of fell in love with certain characters and certain aspects of the animation. So there were some that sort of seemed to be better at the kind of backgrounds and the seascapes, and then some that just loved doing Kamla. So that must have been really nice to see the animators sort of fall in love with certain aspects and really find a kind of a kinship with that.
Yeah, it's actually a kind of casting you do in animation, the same as in acting. You have a bunch of people who are very good with the lead woman character, and they're usually the women. So you give them more and more animation of the women and what they would like. And then there are these action scenes and fight scenes, and then there is a villain, and all the boys love to do the villain and the way he was colored and all. So they kind of fell in love with the character, would try and act like that, and that helps in animation, because my animation, again, is not something that I shoot live action and then give it as a reference to my animators. They had to do the acting themselves, which is also an old tradition of 2D animation. So you teach them acting, you do a kind of casting, and it's quite similar to live action, yet you have to create all of that from a plain paper.
And what did you find the biggest challenge moving from short form and doing everything on your own to working with a big team? 60 animators, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, we had about 20-25 animators. The others were coloring artists, but yeah, it's a small difference. That many artists. Yes, I mean, it is quite a struggle. I think I drove everybody crazy trying to get them to do things which sometimes was not possible by them, and sometimes they were better at it in a different way. So over a period of time, I learned that getting the best out of people, and then finding what is the best talent of which person and giving them more leadership in those areas worked the best. Instead of trying to make everybody do this, like, you know, let's say some people are good in fight scenes, and if you ask them to do a scene which is very tender, you're kind of wasting time on it. But that person might want to improve and, you know, want to do tender things, but you then remember that's a production. So you give them the scenes that they get better and better over 6 months, 8 months. And I think the last 5 or 6 months, I was the one who was approving the scenes and saying, great, stop. And they would say, no, there's a little more we need to add, and it's not perfect in this place. So they had become very sensitive. They had grown, they had matured. And I had kept this is one thing I learned from other people, to keep the most difficult scenes for the last, really emotional peaks. So everybody got used to the character, and then they were given those scenes where a lot of controlled emotions and difficult scenes. For me, emotional scenes, I think, are more difficult than action scenes, even for animators. So those were kept for the end of the film. And They got better at it. So in terms of challenge, for me, each day was, I don't know how the film is going to happen, but let's see today what happens. Let's see tomorrow what happens. And after about 8 or 9 months, I got the feeling that, okay, the film will get made. Otherwise, I was like, okay, no problem. I will make each and every frame. It might take 7 years, but that was my plan B if it didn't work out. So yeah, that was actually the most wonderful challenge to overcome, the creative process.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like out of all the directors I've worked with, you're the most uncompromising in your creative vision, which sounds like a negative, and it's absolutely not. You know exactly what you want, and you're not going to move away from that. And I think that's really important with directors. You know, there's obviously a place where you need to be collaborative, and you were always really collaborative, but you always knew the answer to everything. You always knew. I mean, there were times, as you say, when we would get the animatic or certain scenes, and we were, you know, saying, like, we don't understand this, and you'd be like, no, it's fine. It will all make sense. And we you know, we had such faith in you, and we trusted you, and you obviously completely delivered. But I think it is really important for directors to stick to that vision, particularly when you're making things on a relatively low budget. I mean, this animation wasn't low budget, but for Pixar level animations, you know, it was. You know, so you know, you did such an amazing job in working to the budget and getting everything done, and actually sort of exceeding our expectations with what was delivered. And then I think, meanwhile, whilst you were in the midst of your animation, we were financing. So Cinestan invested a certain amount into the production. We had our French co-production partners, and actually it was quite a challenging film to finance, because it's an art house animation, which is naturally not the most commercial of concepts. Every single person we were talking to adored it, but when it came to the financials, it wasn't the easiest sell. So we did, I think, try and do the German co-production, which didn't work out, because that actually then ends up adding more money to your budget. And so we brought in a UK financier called Goldfinch, who helped co-finance. And I think in the end, it ended up with Film DC's local French money, Cinestan and Goldfinch. I think that was the financing package. And that took months, and we had a lot of meetings in Cannes, trying to find co-financiers, but in the end it worked out very well for us, because we've done our deal, which we can talk about in a bit. I actually wanted to talk to you a bit more about the story itself, and where you got the inspiration from for it, because it's three kind of interweaving stories, and everything comes back to love, really, and different kinds of love, I would say. But I know you're very influenced by classic Bollywood, so it'd be good to talk about that a little bit.
The idea for the film, in different ways, was floating around in my mind. The characters were something that came first to me, and their stories, the backstories, essentially they come from different parts of India into a city like Bombay. The reason being that, as a person who lives in Bombay, who works, who studied here, invariably, just about everybody in the city is a migrant, has come either this generation or the previous generation, or maybe 2 generations back, looking for work, seeking a better life and settling down, or a bunch of people who never managed to settle down and live on the fringes of society. So this, for me, was something that was a very accepted fact in my life, that everybody comes from somewhere else, tries to work, some of them succeed, others don't. And a lot of stories have been told about people who succeed, but very few stories are being told about the huge number of people who don't succeed and their lives. So coming across all these characters in real life was a normal thing. Like, even if you just travel by train, you would see these girls who were selling trinkets in the train. Or if you were traveling by a taxi, you would see boys selling bouquets of flowers. And I would see this flirtation happening between them, and wonder, if you come from 2 different places, you hardly speak to each other from different cultures. And if you were to fall in love, how would it transpire? What then would happen? So I started meeting people, talking to people, reading stories about where people come from, how their lives end up, reading about bar dancers, which was a big thing in the 90s and 2000s. And I actually went and visited them also to understand that this is quite an amazing culture of young women coming from various places. Now, these are not trafficked women. These are women who come out of choice. And since they don't find work here, they go into something like dancing in the bars. And this is not prostitution. So there was this way that women could exist at a certain level of society, could exist in the city. And that was suddenly banned in 2006 for morality reasons. And a number of these women were driven to prostitution, were driven to suicide, were driven to things like, going in the Gulf countries and getting enslaved. Then there were things which were happening like the laws against children who work. So what I felt was in the city, the laws keep wanting to protect women and children, but they don't execute the laws in a way that it affects them. So for me, these two things kind of always trail together, that I want to tell the story of these people and how the city as such and the circumstances and the legalities of the city work against these migrants. And as we are seeing now during the lockdown, how badly the cities treat the migrants, the people who build the cities, who run the cities, who clean the cities. So I felt the story was relevant as it is even now. It was relevant earlier. It's in a kind of urban slavery. And this is what is changing the ecology of our land, with people not doing agriculture and farming and coming and building cities and those kind of imbalances. So there were lots of issues. And of course, I got entangled with a lot of issues. But then I found a love story is something that kind of can touch all these issues and yet be a very human, keep a very human feel to it. So writing the script was quite a struggle, because I think I have too many things that I wanted to say in the film. And I think I still have managed to say too many things in the film, all through a love story, two love stories which get intertwined. And basically it is like, I don't know if I will be able to make another film. So let me tell everything that I want to as grandly as possible. And of course, Bollywood is something I'm not really influenced by so much, but have always looked at it with a lot of skepticism, with sometimes a lot of ridicule and amusement. And all that needed to come in, because all these people that I wish to tell the stories about are hugely influenced by Bollywood. So I had to kind of take a backdoor entry and start appreciating Bollywood from the way they would look at it. So that is also something I use the film for, to make me appreciate Bollywood in ways that I've never done, not be judgmental about it. And that's what probably comes out in the film. It is a celebration of Bollywood, but also a questioning of its responsibilities.
No, absolutely. I think it's probably quite hard to look at Bombay without a kind of lens of Bollywood in many ways, because it's so entrenched in storytelling and in the visuals. I mean, I remember reading the Film Companion review, which was it just totally understood your vision so perfectly, and actually took me to places I hadn't even recognized with it, having seen the film maybe 10, 15, 20 times in various guises. So, and there's so much nuance in there, and so many little kind of Easter eggs for the avid Bollywood fan that wouldn't necessarily translate to a Western audience. But in India, you can see Indian audiences just like ingest everything with such glee, because it's something they haven't necessarily seen before. And I think in terms of, you say that you feel like you had too many themes. I actually love the density of it, because it means you can watch it multiple times and you're getting more and more and more out of the story. I know particularly the love story between D'Souza, for me is so powerful and so moving. And I actually wouldn't want to lose any of what you've brought in, because it's such a rich tapestry, and I love the complexity of it. And I also love the influence you have with the kind of folk art, and the kind of what are the specific, can you talk a bit actually about the animation styles, because I find them really fascinating in terms of Indian history, art history.
Yeah, actually all my films have been usually oscillating between reality and a dream space. And in the dream space, I tend to use traditional art styles or folk art styles of India necessarily of the region that the character comes from and his or her stories belonging to that space. So I have three characters. One is Kamla. She's from the central part of India, Madhya Pradesh. So that place is where the Mughal miniatures and the Kangra miniature paintings are flourished during the 17th and 18th centuries. They still do, but that was really the time, 18th century was when it was at its peak, and we still have those remnants, but it is a dying art form. So I wanted to tell her stories and her reminiscing of the stories in that form of art style. Now, all these are still art styles. You know, you see them as stills. For me, it's fascinating to show people how they would look like if they moved. So you create a world of a painting and you move your characters within it. It simply creates, actually, it can't be done in live action. So I love doing it. So miniatures was, the Mughal miniatures, or the Kangra miniatures to be specific, was the style of the story, of the graphic style, which I used for telling Kamla's story. Salim's story, because he comes from Kashmir and his father is a truck driver, I decided to use the Pakistani truck art style to tell his story. So the Pakistani truck art is actually a style of art. It's very kitschy, but it's also got a tradition of motifs that come from it. So sometimes it is taken to a very elegant level. I found that interesting also because Kashmir is so much at a borderline of between India and Pakistan that for us, loving anything that is Pakistani is a very foreign and very difficult idea. But the moment you put it in aesthetics, you put it in the graphic, nobody seems to have any problem. Nobody even realizes that it is an adoration of Pakistan. So you do these clever things of using the art forms of those places, which have always used to bring people together, to use that again in the film. And of course, Miss D'Souza, whose story is basically like painted frame by frame. I mean, that I could call as a modern, my style kind of thing. So yeah, these three forms of art in this film. In other films, I've explored other forms of art, which I love. There's always some form of traditional art or folk art style in the film. And I weave it into the story in such a way that it is necessary in the story. It's not just an excuse to use them and exotify them.
No, exactly. And you're very deft with how you move between them as well, I think. And it'd be good maybe to talk a little bit about the music as well, because you were obviously very aware of what you wanted from the start for your soundtrack and your design.
I was aware, but it was more like a dream and a wish. How the process of animation happens is you first write a script, and after that you do a storyboard, or in my case, I do an animatic. So basically, it is a visual storytelling of every shot of the film done before we start the animation of the film. So when I do that, I'm editing a 90 to 95 minute footage of film, which is just still drawings. These are meticulously drawn drawings of the moods, the space, what people are doing, more like mood boards than just a working storyboard. And the thing is, if you were to watch it or even edit it or put it together in your mind, you need music as an editor. So when I was doing the animatics and I would reach a particular scene, I would just go online or go into my collection and say, oh, this is the music which I love, and this is going to fit the rhythm of the edit that I need to do and the mood and everything. So I would just use some of the music which I loved, which I had heard and which I could access. It was not like you can't have freshly, newly created music. And the fact is I put it there and then I created the scenes around that music and it had a rhythm. So when you saw the animatic or when anybody else saw the animatic, the music and the visuals seemed to work very well together. And the fact is that we managed to get just about all the music which was existing and which everybody liked into the film 2 years later. All the credit goes to you and Goldfinch for sourcing that music. But that is why you can probably say I was very sure of the music that I wanted. Because if you had not managed to get that music, I would have to think differently. We were so far gone in animation, it would not sound good. It was all a question of the producer and the investment. If it had to go in another direction, I would probably have to use other music for the film. So it's one thing to wish for something, use it, make it work, and it's another thing to have it. So since we got it, it seems to work very well.
I mean, yeah, it works beautifully. You also had some original songs recorded as well. Yeah.
Yes, the original song was never really there in my mind, and it was never there in the animatic either. As we started making the film, I felt that the heroine needs to speak less, and in her mind, she would sing. And it was actually after dubbing the voice, which comes after the animatics, and before we start making the film, all the voices were dubbed. So when the voices were dubbed, as you remember, we found too much silences. And that's where the original music came in. And I think that is the right process, that you have a skeletal idea of where the music will be. And then as the film proceeds, because it takes 2 years to proceed, we find spaces to put in. But yeah, that original piece of music was not really intended enough. I think it was everybody was really worried about it, and I think we had quite a bit of experimentation on those things, because really actually music and sound was where I could experiment, because I could not experiment on the animation at all. Everything has to be so locked and you can't really change it.
Yeah, I think it lifts and it adds a whole extra depth to the emotion of the story, actually, because the vocals are so literally I can feel them, you know. They put little my hairs on end. I think her voice is stunning. So 2.5 years of production, is that right?
Yes, 21 months to be exact.
And then we had
21 months and yeah, and then not 2.5. That's yeah.
Sorry.
No, in production, yes, 21 months, but pre-production was actually 1 year, which I was doing all alone while raising the finance kind of thing. So we really don't have a time for the pre-production, but production and post, exactly, yes, 2.5.
Yeah. And so then we had our finished film, which we were incredibly excited about. And we were very fortunate to open Venice Critics Week, which was a huge win for the film in terms of profile. I think it was the first Indian animation to open, or maybe even play in Critics Week, maybe even. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's several firsts. It's not a surprise because Indian animation has really not gone far at all. So yes, the first Indian animation film, not the first Indian film, but the first Indian animation film.
Okay. But there is a good history with Indian cinema, because I think the year before was Tumbad at Venice Critics Week. So they do have a love of Indian storytelling, and quite kind of progressive storytelling as well, which is nice. It'd be great if you could talk a little bit about the process of premiering your first feature at a major A-list festival.
Well, it's like a blur, because especially now, because living in a lockdown for 4 or 5 months, those memories are I think that was the highlight of the film, and it was too good to be true. So it seems like a dream, but yes, it's like we were all very nervous, of course. It was the opening film, and whether everything will play and whether people will like it or not, because of course Venice gave us a very warm response to the film, and I think we had a full house during the opening, and it was just me and Satish PM and the producers, Deborah, Tessa, Rohit was there, and for me it was really the test of everything that I had done and I put you all through. Was that moment, you know, whether it works or not. And I think, I don't even remember whether we had an applause or not, but I was told we did, because one was really stunned. Yeah, and what was amazing was the Director General of the Critics Week was sitting right next to me. And during the film, I heard him sniffle and cry. And one of the emotional moments. And that was when my heart said, okay, this is it, now I can die. And he told me he had seen the film 2 or 3 times and he was still crying. So that was like the first moment. And I remember when we had the work in progress screening also, a few months, 6 months before this, Rohit, the producer, also was in tears when he saw a very unfinished film. And I felt that, and this thing with the director general in Venice crying and the producer. Those two moments made me feel, okay, the film is working, it's good. And of course, there was no stopping. We got some great reviews, extremely good reviews, and it was, I was very surprised. I think all the reviews we got were quite amazing, because it's one thing to believe in a film, and it's another thing to see an audience believe in your film. I think for all of us, that transition happened that very evening, and we could breathe. And then, of course, there was no stopping the film. It was in Toronto, it was everywhere.
Yeah. It's, how many festivals has it played so far?
Before the lockdown, because the lockdown, well, just about all the festivals have been cancelled. Yeah. So I think we did about 40 or 50 until February. And from August to February.
Yeah. 5 awards?
5 awards as of now, yes.
Yeah. I think part of my favourite part of the process was probably Mami in Mumbai. Yes. Because everyone was so excited to see the film. Everyone had been waiting to see your debut feature for years. I mean, I had the amount of people calling me saying, "Can you get me a ticket? Can you get me a ticket?" And I was like, "There's a queue." There were queues in every single screening.
That felt so good.
It was amazing, and it just felt like the kind of the film of the festival in many ways, because everyone had been tracking your journey and your work has been so beloved. And then to win the 2 awards there was just, it was the proper homecoming.
Yeah, really absolutely. And also the entire team was there. What I missed in Venice was it was just a small group of us. And what happened in Bombay was the entire team, the 100-odd people who had put in work into the film could all be there, and we could together feel it. And it was great because it's a homecoming in a way for the film. The crowd essentially knows all these nuances that you say, which people in Bombay get it. So the Q&As were great, and the response, and yes, having 4 houseful shows, it doesn't matter if you don't have a theatrical release, you know, this does it for you in your own hometown. People fighting over each other for tickets. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, I know. It was such a warm experience. I just wanted to jump back actually to the work in progress. I remember Rohit crying, and it was really scary for me and Deborah Sate, who was also one of the execs, the main exec really. And I remember we were so paranoid and scared because our boss hadn't seen it, and we were like, is he going to like it? And it was just the best moment when halfway through we just realised that he was just literally sobbing. And it wasn't even halfway. Well, it was halfway finished. I think maybe the last third hadn't been finalized in terms of animation, but I think that was the first time when we were kind of like, okay, this is really special. And at the time I'd been working with the original editor of The Lion King, the original kind of 1980s I think it was, and he was saying I remember asking him how they knew they had a massive hit, and he said, oh, we did a kind of animatic screening and people just like went mad for it. And I was like, okay, so we're in a good space. If people are loving our work in progress, then we're good. So festivals, from there we ended up looking into our distribution plan. We did have some offers from distributors to do theatricals, sort of art house, sort of very prestige distributors, but we also had platform interest, and we announced day before, that this is
on the 16th.
Yesterday. So we are going to be a Netflix original, which we're really happy about, particularly in a climate where we can't even see films in the cinema. It feels even more exciting for us to be able to go into a stream release, and they're obviously really excited about the film. They love it. They're big champions of it. So I think it should get a good promotion. Do we have a date? Sorry, I've left Sinistan, so I'm not actually in the loop on what's going forward now.
No, they haven't given us a date. They haven't given anybody a date. But from what I read in one of the articles, it would be the last quarter of this year. So sometime October, November, December.
Christmas, Diwali release. Let's
yes,
hope that would be nice.
Diwali under lockdown. My God, that would be depressing. Yeah, India's supposed to peak in the mid-November. So.
Oh really? Okay.
I don't know.
Everyone can watch Bombay Rose and escape life for an hour and a half. What better way to do that? And then let's talk about what you're doing next. obviously you're in lockdown right now, which can be quite a hindrance to moving forward, but it'd be good to know what your ambitions are.
Actually, I'm such an introvert, and I was getting so tired of the traveling with the festivals and things that I wished for some time home. I did wish for so long, but the lockdown just came on to me like, here, there, you wanted this, stay at home and be by yourself kind of thing, which I love, because this is the time where I'm going to start thinking about my next film. I have started thinking about my next film. It gives me the time and space. And I've also been called upon to direct and artistically direct some projects. So that is keeping me busy. It's all at the idea level, at the conception level. That's keeping me busy. And there's probably a short film by Aardman in the UK is compiling a bunch of short films. So I'm trying my luck by trying for it. So yes, I'm quite happy to do a short film also in between doing my next feature, because again, it's going to be a long time. This time I'm not going to write my feature. I'm going to engage writers. So I could be working. So yeah, they're all at inception level, and during inception level, being by yourself and not traveling and not being very busy is quite good. So it's working out, and I have cats for company. So
do you have your cat?
Do I have my cat here? Yes, they're all sleeping in various places.
And are you going to do any more acting? Because you're also an actress. Well, you recently were in October, Shoot-Jit's film.
I was going to do a small role in the new Aparna Sen movie, but that has not gone into shooting because of the lockdown. So that is tragic. But that is again a role of a lifetime. And Aparna Sen, like, you know, who would
oh my God, that would be an incredible duo. Yeah, I have to see that.
Yeah, it'll probably get pushed a year or two, and if we are all still alive, it'll be the same cast.
Yes, hopefully. Or you just have to find a way to do it in lockdown.
No, that's impossible. It's no, she wrote the film long back, and see, live action is impossible. Animation is, and that's going to be the future for animation. It's definitely something which everybody is saying is going to survive working in isolation.
So it's a good time for you to be getting your next one off the ground.
Yes.
Well, I'm very excited to see what comes next. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about your next certain ideas, and I've always loved everything you've ever done. So you'll have somebody front of the line fighting in Mammy to see your film.
The next one, I'll be an old woman by then.
No, you won't. Anyway. And hopefully it's because you've learned so much from this one, it'll be a nice, fun process for you.
Oh yes, I'm already finding the difference between working with Sanasan, and now there are these new producers for this other pitch, and it's a very American production, and I'm already missing everybody back home that we worked with.
You're missing all the ladies.
Yes, all the ladies, really all the ladies.
Yeah.
And all the European and the Indian and Asian ladies, as opposed to the
you're in the machine now. You're in the Hollywood machine.
I would need to be that to pay my bills, which I haven't, which I don't in the interim period. But then there's also my own film, which is going to be even more difficult than this one to make. And again, look out for a crazy bunch of people who will support me through it and do it. But yeah, that's going to take a while. It's going to take probably about 6 months before I'm ready with the story. It's a story with 9 cats and their 9 lives.
Wow. It's perfect for you. Well, best of luck with it. Congratulations on such an amazing film, if I do say so myself. I think it's...
Yes, both of us.
And I never tire of looking at it. So it will be on Netflix towards the end of the year. We hope everybody enjoyed watching it. We're so sad that we couldn't have had a physical screening to see the reactions. I'm hoping that actually it means more people get to see it, which would be lovely for us. Because really all you want when you make a film is for lots of people to see it. So thank you.
Thank you, and enjoy the film.